for those of you that may recall, we didn't really talk about this before, but Disney recently, in the past couple of months, released into at least domestic theaters for the first time several of the animated productions that were originally destined for theatrical release, but instead went to Disney Plus during COVID lockdown stuff. Well, they put them into theaters, and let's take a look at what they did. And of course, I've deleted myself from that one, didn't I? Here we go. That's what I want. Luca. All right. Luca came out in 2021, went straight to Disney Plus. Look at the domestic box office, $1.3 million. Now, so we're all clear, they released Luca into theaters, about 1,400 theaters. So a limited release, mind you, but still. On March 22nd of this year, just a few weeks ago, it did $558,000 on its opening theatrical release. Now, people out there want to say, well, it wasn't a new title. Well, it was new to theaters. It had never been in theaters before. And it's a big $200 million Disney-style animated production. They didn't put much marketing behind this, I suppose. But there you have it, $558,000 in its opening weekend. And it's at $1.3 million currently. Then, let's look at Soul. Also, a Disney animated release. This from Pixar Studios. Soul has a great worldwide box office by comparison. Great, right? Look where it's coming from, though. Most of it was from China. This was back when it released in 2020. Late 2020. Chinese theaters were still active, I guess. $57 million from China. Of course, Disney would have only taken home somewhere around, say, $12 to $15 million of that because the Chinese Communist Party keeps the rest. And then Russia, they don't release in Russia anymore. $21 million there, and South Korea, $17 million. Everything else internationally was negligible. But take a look at the domestic box office, $946,000. They put this out back in January. They released this into domestic theaters for the first time back in January of this year. $431,000 the first weekend. Same thing, about 1,300 some odd theaters, just like that we saw with Luca. Per theater, average $300 to $400. Pathetic on that regard. Again, this is another big Disney film, right? Another big $200 million Disney film. And then we get to Turning Red. Turning Red. I think we all remember this one. There was maybe some double entendres with the title, considering some of the subject matter in the movie, including tampons and whatnot. Again, is there anything inherently wrong with tampons and puberty? And no, these are natural things, right? But when you stick these into a movie that you also need to get 5 and 6 year olds
Don't ever say it that way again. Don't ever say it that way.
Okay, I'm sorry. Pros here, y'all. He's right, though. That's a little faux pas there, but a good one. But it's not going to work well when you're trying to attract parents that are trying to bring 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids to a movie, especially boys. It's not usually a conversation you're going to have with any kids at that age, but especially, I would think, boys. Again, is there anything inherently wrong with addressing these kind of things or having these topics in a movie? No. But from a commercial perspective, if you're trying to sell as many movie tickets as possible, you probably need other people helping you make these kind of decisions. But here we go. Turning Red, $1.399 million in the box office domestically. This was released February 9th. So as you can see, all three of these movies since the beginning of the year, in the past 3 months, they put these into theaters. This was kind of nothing to talk about at the time, so I didn't care. February 9th, opening weekend for Turning Red domestically, $578,000. You look at the international side, congratulations to Poland for pulling in $3 million on this movie. Apparently, Poland liked this movie for some reason. Now, why do I bring this up? This is a first release, kind of, sort of, went to Disney Plus first. These movies are only collectively about an average of 2 years old. Well, guess what happened this weekend? If we look down here at the box office, there was another very popular animated movie that was re-released 20 years later into theaters. Shrek 2, on its opening weekend with 1,500 screens, a little bit more than the average of the other three, but not much, about 100 to 150, maybe 8 to 10% more screens. Look at the per-screen average, almost $900. Double, triple what we got from the Disney films, $1.35 million. Those other Disney movies that are only 2 years old, that had never seen theaters before, unlike Shrek 2, did about a fourth of that, a third of that, depending on which movie we're looking at on its opening weekend. I mean, look, you can't tell me anymore, Disney, that it's an audience issue. And look, $1.3 million is nothing to jump up and down about. But when you compare it to recent history within effectively the same fiscal quarter thereabout, maybe a few days off, but you're talking about a much better return. And again, Universal probably spent no more effort to market this re-release into theaters than Disney did. Think of when this movie came out in 2004, think of all the physical media copies, DVDs, Blu-rays that are still floating around out there. Think of how long this thing has been on television and streaming. And then compare that 20 years to the 1, 2, or 3 years of these Disney properties we just showed you and what they did. You want to tell me the audiences haven't lost? Or Disney hasn't lost these audiences? You can go ahead and try to tell me that all you want, but, I mean, the math don't work. The math don't math. Hi, Pro!
I'm just glad to know that they're marketing Inside Out 2 with puberty.
I know, right?
The official slogan, puberty is messy. That's going to work. All the little boys want to see it now.
Is that actually the official slogan?
It sure is, yeah.
Oh, you're
Article
kidding.
of that Park Place. That website that you have assisted in becoming one of the premier places for pop culture news and analysis on the web.
I missed that one. Good Lord. Yeah. So speaking of, let's kind of pivot into that real quick, because that is where I wanted to go.
Can I make a really bad dad joke before we do?
Please.
Really bad dad joke, folks. I guess you could say Universal is accidentally in love with this box office.
Yeah, right?
Our song from Shrek.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.